Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Hope you're all doing well. In today's video, exciting video here, we're going to essentially finish off the assembly of this kit. And I say essentially because if you've been watching this whole series, you'll know that there are a number of upgrades that I'm doing to this kit. And so I'm going to do the essential ones, the ones that make it playable in this video. I'm going to attach my upgraded bridge, my upgraded saddle, my upgraded nut, my upgraded tuners, all of that in here, and my bridge pins. So that's what we're doing in this one, but I am doing kind of an interesting electronics thing in it after. So we're gonna have another couple episodes in this series yet to try some of that stuff. But for now, we're gonna stick with the upgraded parts that would normally form part of an acoustic guitar kit. That's today. Let's get after it. So this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. We've got the neck glued in. I did my measurements before I glued that in, but still, we have to redo them. We've got the piece of tape that comes on this Solo APK-10 guitar kit. If you want the kit or any of the upgrade parts, guess what? I got them all from Solo. There's a link in the description. It's an affiliate link. If you want to grab anything from there, it helps me out. So that's where I got all the stuff. That's where I got the kit, and it's basically ready to go. I have the tape here that came with the kit, and I've gone and finished right over it. So now I have to carefully kind of cut around that and peel that off, and that's going to be our glue spot for our bridge. Now, I measured that before I finished it, of course, because I wanted to make sure that it was in the right place. It was, but we still have to measure. We still have to be careful. This is obviously a little smaller than the actual bridge. And so there's a little bit of wiggle room there, and we need to make sure that we wiggle it correctly. So we're going to start by taking that tape off. Then we're going to get everything measured and mark out exactly where we need the bridge to go. Then we can worry about gluing it, which is a bit of a finicky process, especially when you have as few tools for acoustic type stuff as I do. But we can use some basic stuff to get this done. And then after that, we'll get the nut, tuners, saddle, and bridge pins installed. So let's get started. You know, usually when I do this hilariously finicky stuff, it is for finishing work. Not today, though. Today, it's for installation work. So what I've got to do here is be careful to make sure I get all the way through the lacquer, but I don't want to cut into the wood for what's probably, you know, an obvious reason. I don't want to weaken the wood around this. It's a little razor blade, so it's probably not an issue. I'm probably being more careful than I need to be about how hard I push here, but still better safe than sorry. You don't want to hack through these tops because they're pretty thin, right? And so the key here, in my opinion, is to make sure that you get all the way through that lacquer so that you don't have to worry about peeling any of it up when you go to peel up the tape. So you only want to peel up, obviously, the lacquer that is over the tape. You don't want to worry about it catching and peeling away some of the other lacquer. Otherwise, we're going to have a repair job to do on that, which is okay. I mean, lacquer is easy to repair. We've already got one repair job to do where I burnt through it with my new polishing system that I have yet to perfect. But less repair work is obviously better. So finish cutting around this. All right, so now that I've cut all the way around that, I'm going to use a brand new flat razor blade. I'm going to start in the corner here, lay this along that edge, and just try to gently get under and peel that. Key here is to avoid peeling up the wood because this tape presumably has been on here for a while. Now, if you are worried about this process, you can remove the tape before you finish the guitar and install the bridge at that point and then just carefully tape it off. It's not how I like to do this because I have done that before, taped off acoustic bridges, and I don't like it. But it's certainly an option. I've got, you know, my own difficulties with this method as well, which include this part of the process, which is challenging, and also making sure that I get a good glue bond, because I'm going to have a little bit of lacquer around the outside of where my bridge bond's on there. So I think there can be arguments for both of those alternatives. If anybody in the comments builds electric guitars regularly, acoustic guitars rather, regularly, and has some feedback, some input on that, feel free. This is just a kit build, obviously, and acoustics are not something that I build regularly, or at all. So let me learn from you if you know that I'm doing something wrong here. Well, would you look at that? Hilariously, I've already learned something. So let me correct myself, kind of. Not that what I was doing was wrong per se, hopefully. But I made the switch from the razor blade to my chisel that I have recently sharpened. If you didn't watch the video on me comparing sharpening stones, I just sharpened this using some stones from Solo Music Gear. This is a chisel from Solo Music Gear that's sharp enough for me to shave my arm hair with. It's starting to grow back. And that really sped things up. I just laid it flat like that on this edge and cleaned that up in a matter of a couple minutes. So now we'll get our measurements set up, get our tuners in place, and then we can glue in our bridge. Let's move it along. So we all know how scale length works. It needs to be double the distance from the nut to the 12th fret. The edge of the nut, the front edge that goes against the fretboard, is the edge that we use, the part of the nut that we use. So let's get our measurement here. 12 3/4. So now we need to go 12 3/4. Well, you get the idea. 12 3/4 from the 12th fret to the saddle. So what we'll have to do here is pull this out. We're gonna have to make sure it's square, centered. Well, I shouldn't say square, but actually, yeah, this one can be square because the slot here is pre-angled. It's a beautiful, beautiful upgrade piece here. Solo Pro Martin style acoustic bridge. So we'll get that positioned over the tape, where the tape was, and let's see how we did in terms of the distance. So we want that to be a little bit longer, and it is, and we want the high E side to be just a very little bit longer, like a 1/16. Yeah, that's about right. We need about 3/16 of extra space over here. We're good. All right, so right there, that's what we want. But now we need to make sure that we're square. So we'll check the leading edge. I'm going to measure all the way down this edge of the fretboard to do that. 25. It's not the distance that matters here. It's just that it's equidistant that's important, which it is. So that's good. We've got a square line there. Now I'm going to mark that with masking tape. Just a little piece of masking tape to mark both my position and my square line. And now I'm going to know that I want to glue this bridge down right against that piece of tape. Okay. Good. And now all I need to do is confirm the side to side. So let's see if I run again down the edge of the fretboard, we end up just a hair outside the far string on this side, which is what we're looking for. We don't want the strings going over the edge. And down this side, okay, well, we just got very lucky there. This only needs to move over about 2 millimeters. Nice. Okay. That's where that needs to go. In keeping with the same removable marking system, we're going to use the masking tape and just mark the edge of this. Now, if you want to be more certain of this, then what I would say to you is use some double-sided tape, some gentle double-sided tape, and tape some blocks in place. That's your other option here, but the masking tape should do the trick just fine, I think. All right, so that's where our bridge is getting glued. Let's make sure we've got long enough clamps. Now there are tools that push down on the wings and the center all at the same time. I don't have those tools, unfortunately. Wonder if there's something I can make real quick. Probably not. So what I'm going to use is a little piece of foam, essentially, that's going to distribute this a little bit more evenly, and it's going to be firm packing foam. See if I can do this without hurting myself. Probably not the smartest approach there, but it worked. Okay, now I'm going to cut this in half. And I'm going to use that under each side. Now I need a block. It's very excessive. Will those compress enough? They will if I clamp them hard enough. All right, so this will be what we use to protect the top of the bridge. And that should be good. Okay. Moment of truth. Was this video in vain? In other words, do I have clamps that will reach this? I do. I have 2 clamps that can do this job. I would like to have 4 and ones that are more specific to this task, but I don't. So we can do this. Before I glue that in, because it's going to be cumbersome, there's going to be a lot of stuff in the way, I'm going to go ahead and get the tuners put in place. Then we're going to glue this. I'm going to drill, like I haven't drilled the top of the guitar for this. I'm going to do that after this is in place. So let's get those tuners installed real quick, and then we can move forward with getting this guy glued up. So for the tuners, we've done kind of the classic upgrade that I do on all of my guitars now, or most of them. We've upgraded to the black nickel locking tuners from Solo Music Gear. As you will know if you follow my channel, I love these things. That's going to look, oh, these are beautiful. I like them. So I did eventually realize that if I didn't speed up the footage on this and move to a voiceover, this video would be like an hour long. And nobody wants that. So let's just move on this way for the rest of the video. These are a staggered tuner, meaning that they are not all the same height. That design is basically so that you can use a flat headstock instead of an angled one, and you don't have to worry too much about putting in, you know, string trees, string rollers, that kind of thing, because the ones that go furthest from the nut are shorter. So they automatically put some extra string tension on, they pull the strings down a little bit. Not a big deal on this because it's an angled headstock, of course, but still good to know. You don't want to get that backward. It'll look kind of silly. So we check all our heights, and then we go ahead and get these installed. Make sure that they're all nice and square, which I like to do by basically turning the tuning knobs so that they're all perfectly vertical. I find that makes it a little easier to line them up. And then, yeah, we can go ahead and get them tightened up. And to do that, I've got a little socket on a short screwdriver that I use, and I just tighten them up by hand like that. I don't use a larger device. I don't use a ratchet or anything like that. They simply don't need to be that tight. Next up, we're going to go ahead and get the bridge actually glued on here. Now, I don't really have all the tools that I would like to have for this, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. In fact, it can definitely be done. We just need something to allow us to clamp it down properly. Ideally, we would have something to spread the pressure around a little bit, and we'd have, 4 clamps that fit in there nicely and are not extremely long like the ones I have here. We're not working with an ideal scenario here, but you don't necessarily need all that stuff, okay? You don't need to go and spend hundreds of dollars at StewMac or whatever to be able to get this glue job done. So I've put the glue on the bridge and on the guitar. It is ready to clamp, and I'm using a piece of wood, a piece of maple to spread the pressure out, and a couple pieces of hard foam. I need to tape a block in underneath because otherwise my clamps will kind of slip at a weird angle, and I don't want that, so I tape a block directly underneath the bridge, and then I simply clamp it down. And the hard foam that I'm using is going to put some pressure on the outsides. I'm going to jam 2 clamps in there. I like to have more, but it is what it is. I'm going to jam 2 clamps in there. And they kind of have to go in the middle, partially just because they don't reach anywhere else. And I'm going to put some pressure on there. Make sure the bridge is pushed in place and get it clamped down. And that's it. Once those are clamped in place, I let it sit for about 24 hours, and this is me basically the next day taking this out. So I take those off, get obviously the stuff off the top, unstick the piece of wood that I've taped from the bottom, and then peel off the tape that's going around the bridge. It's actually a pretty straightforward process, but don't let that fool you. It can still be challenging getting everything clamped and perfect, and I was careful. I went out and checked it a couple times after I had it clamped within the next hour or so to make sure that nothing had slipped. So I'm going in with a hobby knife now and just cleaning up the little bit of residue that I have there. Most of it was on the tape, so it's not a problem. And now I have to drill for my bridge pins. So the top of this guitar does not come pre-drilled, and bridge pins are long, so you have to drill all the way through the top of the guitar. And so I'm starting off just a little bit smaller and doing a pilot hole. You can see there I used a gauge to figure out how big the holes needed to be. I'm doing a smaller hole first, making sure that I've got it centered within the pre-drilled kind of pilot holes that they have here, which are only partial depth. And then I'm going to go in and drill those out further afterward. A step bit is actually a really good tool for this. That's not what I ended up using, but a step bit's a good way to get this kind of dialed in to the right width if you've got one that goes up in small steps. Not all bridge pins are quite the same, I don't think, so I think it's important to measure. I think there are at least a couple different sizes. Now, I'm not entirely sure on that, so don't quote me on it. Maybe there is a standard measurement, but to be on the safe side, I would still double check. Use a gauge or something and make sure. Now I'm going in with a countersinking bit. This is the same kind of thing that you would use to countersink a metal hole for a screw. And I'm just going in by hand here as opposed to on a drill, just to clean up those edges, make sure there are no burrs, and make sure that my pegs will go in there nice and smooth. As you all know, the bridge pins that I've chosen, the upgrade bridge, the upgrade nut, and this saddle are all from Solo Music Gear. The nut and saddle and the pins are all made by Tusk, as you can see there from the packaging material. So I've just gone and sat the nut on the guitar. It's about right, but I do need to shave down this saddle a little bit, and so I need to sand down the edges. I'm doing that just using a Durablock block that I bought off Amazon. I think you can find it in the Amazon link in the description. I actually use this for leveling and a whole bunch of stuff, but here it's a nice level surface to use with some 320 grit adhesive sandpaper to get this nut dialed in. This saddle. So I had to shave a little off the side to make sure it would slide in nicely into the slot in the bridge, and then I had to take a bunch off the bottom. And obviously these acoustic guitars are designed to have a little bit higher action than an electric. There's not much that we can do about that, but you can dial it in somewhat. You just need to take a whole bunch off the bottom of the nut. These blank nuts come with, well, they're not really blank. These pre-shaped Tusk nuts come with a lot of extra material, at least as far as I'm concerned, that you can go ahead and take off. The next thing I need to do is string this up. I don't think you guys need a tutorial from me on how to string up an acoustic guitar. It's pretty straightforward, but I like to start with the outsides. And one unusual item about this, or at least unusual in terms of the acoustics that I've owned, is it's got those locking tuners, which I really like. They're a little bit heavier, but I don't find that creates any problems for me now when I'm playing the guitar. So I'm happy with that choice. I've got the locking nuts on there, or the locking tuners, and yeah, everything's kind of, that also helped me undo it a couple times when I needed to shave a little bit more off the saddle and finally get it dialed into where I wanted it. So I realize I got a little bit rambly there, but that's about it. After this, I go ahead and get it strung up, do a minor adjustment to the truss rod, and then it's good to go. We've got ourselves an acoustic guitar. We're going to have to do a little bit of a repair job on it, like I said, to the finish next to the fretboard there, so we'll do that in an upcoming video. And we're going to also try to do some interesting electronics work to it. So I'm going to test out a pickup designed for acoustic guitars in an upcoming video, and then we may actually wire one up into this thing. That's the plan, at least. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. It does help me out. And remember to subscribe so you can see the next part of this, including, like I said, the repair. Trying this out with a cool pickup from Solo Music Gear, and eventually, hopefully, wiring up a pot and an output jack and all that fun stuff. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. See you next time.